I was one of the first, I think, who bought a sampler, and it was actually because of my musical teacher at is it elementary school, I think, even. And he was the first with a sampler, which you could put something in. Now it's quite normal, of course, but this sampler had like you could record 1.4 seconds, and I think that was at the time you had this track from Chaka Khan. Everybody was in Chaka Khan, so and I became friends with him, and he invited me over to his house, and he also had a studio as a musical teacher, but he also had a studio as a hobby. And one of the persons in my life who taught me enormous amounts of how do you work with sounds, you know, how do you get dynamics, how can you get openness in a mix, because it's not about loudness, it's about dynamics. Oh, that's really young, I think 11, 10, yeah, 10. And then I received my first kit from Santa Claus. In Holland we have Sinterklaas, which is different than Santa Claus, but it's like a national holiday and you get gifts. So it was a plastic drum kit. Drove my mom and dad insane, but yeah. So we had a radio program in Holland, and they had a competition every week, and you could send in mixes. So I bought like a tape recorder. First of all, I did it on my parents' tape deck, just with the pause button, just edit it together like this, and then I bought a tape machine that you can actually slice tapes. Because I'm a little bit older, right? So I actually made drum loops with my tape machine and a Coca-Cola bottle. And so you create an endless loop. And that was actually my first trick, because you didn't have samplers who could, you know, now you can just easily, it's, you know. So I'm from that age, making drum loops with Coca-Cola bottles. So I did this contest, and then I was invited to the studio, and yeah, there was this producer, and he was really like, yeah, this is really good. And you had this CD series called Turn Up the Bass, and they thought it was so good that they actually released my mix on CD. So I was like, and I was really young, I was 15, yeah, 15. So, because my dad he was retired, and he had a car, he was car mechanic, so he had a very small shop, and he was really proud of me and supportive. He said, okay, Patrick, if you really want to try to make this work, I will, because this space was vacant, empty. So we made sort of like a small studio in that old garage. And in that old garage I did a lot of stuff, because that was my domain, so I had everything, you know, it was brilliant, and I borrowed synthesizers, and that was my, yeah, a great time. Well, really a lot, because I was a member, it was a DMC, Disco Mix Club, and they had packages, and they sent promos to you. So that was my first experience, was with D-Mob and Humanoid, Mars. No, Mars was later, well, 89, I think. So, but anyway, so my biggest influence always came from overseas, the UK sound, and actually my records, or the first demos I made, including bits and pieces, I went into record companies in Holland and said, ah, this is really, this is awful. And they said, you need to make something more like the technotronic sounds. Like, no, fucking, we're not gonna do that. And it's funny because La Luna, for instance, was rejected by a lot of companies in Holland. And then, because I lived in the UK for 6 months, and I met some people, and and it ended up, let's see, it ended up before Virgin. It ended up, I don't know. But anyway, so they released a record and it became quite successful. And then I spoke to the guys in Holland, and I was in the record store, and this whole wall was full of La Lunas, and they were speaking about it. Yeah, this is a new guy, and blah blah blah. And that was, I actually presented it to him, and they rejected it. So it was just funny. And that happened with Artemisia, same story. Yeah, that was the A&R's nightmare. Everybody hated it. And Patrick, listen, you know, this is successful, stick with this, and da, da, da. And I always want to do something else. And of course, that's not really smart commercially. But it's not only about, for me, it's about the craft. It's not, you know, commercial, it's not good for my bank account, but it is better for my happiness to just try to evolve, try to do something new. And of course, aliases was not really helpful, but still. Yeah, in basic fact for me, and again, that sounds not commercial at all, but it's just really how I feel. I think it's really special that you make something in a really tiny studio, something that you like, and then it gets out there, it gets heard, and you have this influence on people, and you make people happy with something that wasn't there before. Now, that's just almost magical, right? That's brilliant. That's music to me, you know? To be almost like part of a, that sounds dodgy, be part of a soundtrack of someone's life, you know? Something that I just, in this tiny studio, you know, brilliant. That's music for me. Normally my sets are very diverse, so when I'm doing the more like Translot style stuff, then I'm not doing bits and pieces. The catalog is quite extensive, so it's not, you know, now in Scotland, of course, I'm going to do bits and pieces, and I do a special one and try to see a lot of happy faces. That's what I'm aiming for. Maybe it's also the background. It's really true, Laurie, that maybe I come from such a, I know a lot of people who are like that. And for me, it's always funny. And a lot of my friends are exactly the same, and we just make jokes about people who just tend to be so incredibly full of themselves. Last time I was at a club, and this guy came in, and the bouncer at the door, and and a friend of mine was at the door standing there. And I will not say his real name, but he said to the guy, because he wanted to get, "Do you know who I am?" And then the guy looked at him, "Yeah, I know who you are," and just closed the door. Bye, let's go away. You know, grow up, please. Tony DeWitt was playing a lot of my tunes in Trade, and he was a big fan of Artemisia as well, and the whole gay community came in, the Peppermint Lounge and Le Vol Soleil, and because that's all in the same period. It's all in like 3 years or something, those tracks. Definitely, but also more of the same, with all due respect. One trick pony kind of thing, you know? So again, being commercial is much more important than the craft. And again, I'm a believer of something. Music is emotion. Music is something that music is honest. Music needs to be honest. Music, it's not a trick. And nowadays, and of course I'm using a lot of stuff which a lot of people use, but it's now so easy. Most producers I know just take banks, buy a bank, and that's it. And you can, you know, what I like to do is, if I need a kick drum, It's the same as the cola bottle. The kick drum in Bits and Pieces is actually a snowball, and I'm not kidding you. It's a snowball thrown at the wall. And it's just, you know, and there's my studio door is also on top. It's a layer, and that's the kick drum. I'm not kidding you. Well, there's one funny thing. Again, story about the teaspoons, but my mom actually, because my mom at the time sometimes came in, you want coffee or something, it was perfect. It was like almost like perfect service. And there's a teaspoon in a cup that you hear in the middle break. And of course, she's not doing the sequence, but it's just one. And I played it on the keyboard, but it's a teaspoon. Authenticity almost. So it's like. I know a lot of people, and of course that's almost normal because, you know, there's not so much time. I made time. I didn't perform much, and on purpose, because otherwise I couldn't do it. And I know for a fact that a lot of people have like ghostwriters, and that's just the new best thing. That's my phone, by the way, sorry. I like to be, you know, I'm not your, again, what I just told you about Top of the Pops, you know, drove A&Rs insane. Like, he doesn't want to play out, you know. So I'm doing it sometimes if I really want to do it, but I like it that way. That you know, this distance thing, and this aliases, and doing a lot of stuff for other people and with other people, and I just like that. Yeah. Like all those, and especially at the time in the UK, all those interviews and press and video shoots, and you know, it's okay, and but it's not who I am. It's like, it's about the music. It's not about me. It went so well, but the business side was so was almost choking me. I spend more time on the phone and doing this stuff, this side stuff, than, so I lost a little bit the connection almost. And then I made just a straight decisions, like, okay, well, I will move, and I will just be completely, and that's the time when I actually made more aliases, and I did a lot of tunes which people till this day don't know that that's me, and that's fine. That's fine. I always, still till this day, I have a memo recorder with me, and I just sampled everything. And maybe because when I was also quite young, at 15 or something, my first CD, no, my second CD that I bought was The Art of Noise. Followed by Prefab Sprout. It's a strange combination. Great stuff. This experimental stuff about, you know, production-wise, Trevor Horn and Dudley, and you know, that always appealed to me, really. You know, make sound, because it's sound, and how can you, and again, making it dynamic. So make space for the sound, not by putting it louder and louder, like almost like the loudness war. It's not. But anyways, that's just how I see things. And it can actually be very creative as well. It can give you an enormous boost in creativity. I did a track, I heard there was a newspaper girl driving, and she had this bag on the bicycle. And the bag was actually hitting the spokes, right, of the wheels. And only that sound, and she just drove by, and I was just sitting there and accidentally recorded, like, and I use that. It's in the gloom. Of course, filtered and stuff, but still, yeah. That must be a joke, right? Now that then really means that I need to immigrate, right? But I thought it was a joke, but it's really true. And then of course make it the classical version. I have some ideas about that, but that would be, yeah, well, I cannot imagine that that would be the case. Well, I would be incredibly honored, but it would also be quite funny, to be honest, right? Well, but then again, what can you say? Strange things happen. Thank you.